Hey guys, welcome into the Bear With Us podcast reaction pod. Frankie, we got Caleb Williams. Let's fucking go.
Listen,
Let's fucking go. And Odunze. And fucking Odunze.
I feel like that's the real celebration. Not that I didn't want Caleb. We all want Caleb, but it's like we knew it was going to happen, right? Like when we talked about this last pod, like really the answer is, or like the question is, what the hell are we doing with the 9th pick? So they picked Caleb. Honestly, I was a little nervous. Like they better not have smoke screen the fuck out of us. And like, here comes Drake May at number 1.
JJ McCarthy, he's coming. He's coming to Chi-Town.
Dude, it is almost insane how well the board fell. And we were just texting before this. It's also insane to me how predictable this draft was. And I almost wonder, it makes me wonder, I don't want to steer down this direction too much. This is a celebratory immediate reaction here. But like, we're seeing GMs be way more open. The Patriots came out and said, if Drake May's there at 3, we're taking him. Like, we're not going to trade back. And it's just like hours beforehand. Ryan Poles has been as transparent as possible. It's like, I almost want, like, is this an anomaly? Or is this just a thing where people are, front offices are being a little more open to the media? Because at the end, remember, with our frustrations in the past is like, you don't lose leverage by saying what you're going to do. Because, like, they know it. Like, let's live in reality here. Everyone knows it.
Every team knows.
That's what I mean. So, like, this weird secrecy of things, I hope is, like, leaving. Granted, it makes the draft a little more boring because, like, I almost knew. Penix was the only pick I didn't know was happening.
Dude, I don't know what was going on, but like I was watching the draft on NFL Network, and like Twitter had the picks like while they were in commercial break. I'm like,
Sleeper did
and
too.
Like the official NFL Twitter was like tweeting out I'm like I thought we solved this problem like years ago. When do you remember there was that one draft where like Schefter and Rappaport were just trying to get out who like 10 picks before, and everybody's like, why are we watching this? And that's kind of how it felt like it was yesterday. It was just very strange. But no, I agree. I thought when New England stayed at 3, I thought, okay, the top 3, very obvious. I thought the biggest question mark could have been 4 at Arizona, but obviously they went, in my opinion, probably the second best overall player in the draft, if not just the best, depending on how you feel about Caleb Williams,
right?
With Marv Jr. And then number 5 was kind of where I just assumed things would get a little bit crazy. And then things didn't get crazy until the number 8th pick, and they didn't even trade. It was just the draft pick was one of the worst picks I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But regardless, to say all of that, to say, I mean, Frank, when you, Nas and I, if you will, did our last episode, we talked about some just scenarios that we would love for it to happen. I talked about how I really wanted Neighbors, or would love to trade up for Marv. And, if they're at 9, I wanted them to stick and draft Odunze. Like that was kind of what I was really wanted them to do at 9. Fuck defense. Let's just go. Apparently that was the thought of every other fucking team in this draft that just said, fuck defense. This is fantasy football now. We're taking all offense. But to not have to move at all, up, down, take the best player available, see everybody saying, like, draft grades after the first round are silly. I can't help myself. It's just fun to seeing the Bears get like A+.
Yep.
From just overall pretty much everyone. It's just satisfying, especially after the last few drafts of more questionable picks. Oh, they should have drafted, Stroud, or they should have just drafted Jalen Carter. It's just like, it felt good that it just made sense. Like we didn't have to question it at all.
Agreed. And just like I said on the last podcast, where I'm at with it is, would I have been like absolutely heartbroken had they taken Byron Murphy at 9, Dallas Turner, any of the pass rushers? Like, not particularly, but again, I'm just ready for offense, man. We've had defense before, and we know it doesn't translate year after year after year. You can rotate these guys. All you need is your anchors. I think we're set at linebacker for a few years. Our corners are fucking phenomenal. Safety is it's safety, right? Like, and now Montez Sweat is that anchor. Now we can find other plug-in plays elsewhere. Like, let's solidify the offense first, and I think they did that. And again, what's funny is we all, now that the first round has been laid out, we all would have been right in what we wanted. Like you and Nas both were like, I'm leaning towards Odunze or Neighbors if he's there. And I said, if it's just Odunze, I'm okay trading back because I want to get AD Mitchell later. And that could have, or Worthy later. And either scenario was obviously on the table because AD Mitchell's still on the board and Xavier Worthy didn't go until what, 27, 28, whenever the Chiefs
28.
moved up. Yeah. So like, you know, it's interesting that we all sort of had a pulse on this year's draft, which again is like, now that I have 2 kids, it's tough for me to do as much. I'm not as invested in the process anymore. So it makes me just wonder. I keep going back to like, was this year's draft just that predictable, or are people just being more, upfront about what the process is and like who they have eyes on?
I just think it was just like a perfect storm, especially when you look at like, because like people, on NFL Network, like Rich Eisen, I can't remember who else he was with, but like some of them were getting like mad, like, oh, just no defense being drafted. Like, what's going on? I'm like, I get it, but like this draft on the offensive side of the ball is just so good. Like you have to consider a lot of these guys. Now, that being said, I think some of the quarterbacks, like the fact that this is the draft that had 6 quarterbacks go in the first round, it will always be a little bit weird to me.
Yeah.
Especially in the first 12 picks. But I just think it's because there's so many teams that just needed a quarterback. Like it just was kind of a perfect storm of, like, this isn't the 2022 draft, right? With quarterbacks who like you can maybe see going in the first round, like Kenny Pickett, or maybe in the second or third, like ended up happening, or even later. But this draft was just really good, and I think a lot of things just lined up pretty well, like team needs and where certain guys were. I was a little more surprised to see the Chargers take Joe Alt at 5. Instead of trading back. But based off of how the first 9 picks went, I don't really know who was trying to trade up, because I would have thought, okay, so the Vikings came up to get JJ McCarthy, right? Like
Yep.
They jumped over, they came up, what was it?
They came up one
spot?
pick. Yeah, they came up one pick, so they jumped somebody, yeah.
I would assume that was probably the Raiders were probably trying to get up to 10 with the Jets, but
potentially Denver too. They wound up with Bo Nix.
But the Falcons not trading back and then taking Penix, like it's interesting to me, because like there weren't a lot of opportunities. It doesn't seem like teams were going to be trading up that far or willing to trade into the top 10. So it's just weird.
A report did come out and say there were a few teams wanting to trade in the top 10 to get Michael Penix. So his stock was sneakily on the rise, which also, I mean, it's just, so it's not weird for me because of his talent. You all know he was damn near my QB too. I like him a lot. I like him a fuck ton. It's just the situation is strange to me. He's 24 years old. We know that his injury history, but then you just paid Kirk Cousins like a guaranteed 160. That's the weird part. So they're talking about, like we know the Green Bay method. The Green Bay method was drafting a 20-year-old and letting him sit for 4 years, not a 24-year-old. That's a drastically different thing. I think Michael Penix is ready to start right now. Now, Love was drafted at like 28 or something and clearly wasn't ready to start yet. Like you usually when you take a quarterback in the late first, the reason is, even if he's a little bit more raw, is we have a little more time with him because we get a 5th-year option with the first-round quarterback. That mindset isn't there in the top 10 or even probably top 15. But even to your point of like, is this really the year that all these quarterbacks go? Because, like, I know we're not the highest on Will Levis, but I'm taking Will Levis over Bo Nix, probably over Michael Penix. Like, just pure talent-wise, that's a guy that I'm taking in the first over some of these dudes. JJ McCarthy, certainly. Like, this was a strange draft. Again, it was oddly predictable to a degree, but with the quarterbacks going that early was not. That was strange.
And there were just some classic teams making just some classic questionable decisions that they typically make, like the Raiders taking Brock Bowers when they just drafted Michael Mayer last year.
Yeah.
Like I don't love it. Now that team, that felt like more of like a panic thing where they're like, oh shit, all of the quarterbacks are gone, let's take the best player available, who obviously they thought was Brock Bowers. And who knows, maybe it'll be nice, dual tight end set. I don't know. I mean, a little strange to me.
The other thing, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, within that top 9, like, if I'm Michael Penix, I got to be honest with you, I'm probably a little bit pissed.
Oh yeah,
I'm probably
100%.
a little bit upset because you're right. Like he is gonna sit. He's gonna sit for a while because they're paying Kirk Cousins to be good and be good for a while, not just this year. They're paying him $45 million a year.
Yep.
And the people's and I saw that the Falcons were like, oh well, we like the Green Bay model. Okay, but you didn't do the Green Bay model.
No.
You paid a guy who has never been Aaron Rodgers, who's never been as good as Aaron Rodgers, to be good for the next 3 to 4 years. And then you drafted a guy, like you said, who's 24. And by the time he takes over, he may be 27, 28 with an injury history.
Yep.
Like it's just that was a very, very shocking pick. Like I never would have expected that, to be honest.
Well, especially because, and I don't want to harp too much. Let's get back to celebrating the Bears, but it was so perplexing that we had to touch on it. Certainly, the other weird thing with the Falcons is and this is just my projection of Michael Penix. I don't see him as a super, I don't think he has much more of a ceiling left. So this isn't a guy that you sit and let learn and go. I think he's sort of what you see is what you get, which to me is probably a starting quarterback very early. I think pretty high of him. Just situationally, it's very strange.
He's kind of like Tua, but with a better arm, in my opinion. He's just ready
agreed.
to play. But I don't know if he'll ever be superstar level.
No, I agree. But I do think his play style in giving, you saw with the way him and Rome work together. He gives guys a chance to make catches, and that's what you need out of NFL pass throwers. That's one of the biggest reasons why Justin Fields isn't a Bear. It's because that hesitancy of not throwing the ball. I don't think Penix has that at all. He believes in his arm. Whether there's a window or not, he's going to give his guy a chance, which could hurt him, but I think it's more of a positive than anything. But Jackie, getting back to the Bears, man, we're entering an era right now that has never happened in our lifetime. And there's still people who are pissed about Justin Fields being traded, my 4-year-old son being one of them. But even people on Twitter who are blatantly saying, man, I'd be so much more happier if I just didn't feel like they fucked over Justin. And it's dude, two things can be true, man. They didn't do their best to build around him. I get it. But we have to move on. Because part of me is also even if we did, there was no guarantee that Justin was ever going to get to the level that we think Caleb can. Just look at the ceiling here and even the floor. We have to embrace this kid. Look at how much he's already bought into Chicago. They released the phone call. He's, man, I've been hanging out. And Poles says, hey, they told me to hang on for 5 minutes, but you're the pick. Want to call you early. Do your thing. And he said, but I've been hanging on to it for a month. And then Caleb goes, well, I've been hanging on to it for 5 months, man. I'm so excited about this. Dude, he's embraced the city already. He has a navy blue Bears coat on. He takes it off with a shirt that says Chicago on the back. He's all the fuck in. RG3, suck my fucking dick, bitch. He's all in on Chicago, baby. We're here. We're ready to go. We have to embrace this, man. We have a young quarterback that is one of the best prospects at that position of all time and in a very long time. We have a wide receiver who would be a potential wide receiver 1 on some of these teams, who's going to be our third option in year 1 anyway. Embrace it, man. Move forward. Be happy about this. I'm a little upset that I'm still seeing people I guess just upset because of what happened with Justin. It's okay to be cautiously optimistic if you're cautious. I get it. We're all Chicago fans. We know, you get too bought in, you're going to get bit. Okay, I'm there. But to not be bought in on this kid at this point is crazy to me.
Well, and it's not, I guess I understand it from the perspective of, okay, drafting offense in round 1 hasn't typically worked out for the Bears, right? I think the last wide receiver they took in the first round was Kevin White at number 7 overall.
Right.
But Rome Odunze is not Kevin White. Kevin White was this just physical freak. He was he was going to have to learn all these routes. He was super athletic. Rome Odunze is not that. He's already a polished product. If he was in a different draft class, he could very well have been the first wide receiver. There just happens to have been 2 even better prospects. But he's still if they're A+, he's an A minus.
Right.
He's still a very good, and you don't need him to be a number 1 wide receiver right away, or really realistically anytime soon. You have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, and you know what this does, Frank? It means that you don't have to commit to Keenan Allen past this year or next year. If they want to do another 1-year deal for him, whatever, who knows if he would take that based off of how he does this year. But this just opens up this offense so much more. You're going to see these 3 guys moving around so much. And this is not going to be, in my opinion, a Jackson Smith and Jigba type situation where he's just not getting the ball a whole lot. Like, Rome is ready to play now, and I think Waldron is going to be able to move these guys into the correct places and just gives Caleb, like, there is no scenario, no situation that a first overall quarterback has ever gone into that has been this good.
Nope.
This good. There's no, I can't even think of anything that comes close to comparing to this. This is like, this is everything that, like, if Caleb can't succeed in this offense, it's not going to be, there will be no questions of, well, is it the play caller? Is it, does he have enough weapons? Does it, blah, blah, blah. And I think he will succeed because I don't know what happened in this draft cycle where it's like the very clear, obvious quarterback won, and people are still like, I don't think he's that good. Did you see that Notre Dame game? It's like, okay. Did you see the supporting cast that he was working with? Like, you just spent months complaining about how Justin had nobody to throw to, and now Caleb was in the same scenario in college, and you're just like, yeah, well, he should be able to lift him up. And it's like, all right, whatever. This is what I've wanted from the Bears. You and I have wanted from the Bears for so fucking long. There's not just one guy anymore who's just really good at wide receiver, Allen Robinson, and then you're hoping another guy falls into place. Like, Ryan Poles went above and beyond to make sure that this is a perfect situation for Caleb or whoever it would have been. Obviously, it was Caleb now to walk into and succeed right away.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That was going to be really my, like, ultimate point is we asked for this for Mitch. We didn't really get it, but I don't think he was that good anyway. And that's why I think that lingers with Justin is that you still don't know. And I think it's largely in part because of the way he was built around. Now, he has his faults. We don't have to dive into those. I don't want to have to keep prefacing that. But, like, the situation wasn't the greatest. Caleb is walking in year one into a situation that playoff expectations are here. The supporting cast is elite. Forget even being the best for the number one. This is the best for a lot of quarterbacks. Like, Patrick Mahomes would love this wide receiving core. You know what I mean? Like, any quarterback in the league would take this probably over what they have now, 1 through 3. And then tossing in Cole Kmet as well as a very solid tight end. So we, just like you said, all we've ever asked for is we want to build a situation for a quarterback to fucking know what we have. I don't want it to be year 3, but is it Mitch? Is it Nagy? I mean, he really only has one guy to throw to. Here's Justin Fields finally getting a receiver in year 3. Is he good though? Like, he looks good throwing it to him, but no one else. Like, is it him? Is it not? No, we're not in that situation. We're in a situation where Caleb can come in, and if he's fucking good, he's going to be good because the situation around him is set up for him to be that. And if he's bad, he's just bad because the situation is not failing him. This is a situation that's all we ever asked for. We're here, but I'm right there with you, dude. If you have any doubts about Caleb Williams, you either don't watch film, don't understand how to watch film, still pissed off about Justin, or you have this weird bigotry thing going on because you think a way about him because he has a different personality. But someone on Twitter had put out there, they said it in a negative way. I took it as a fucking positive way. They were like, this kid might be, because the scout was like, oh, he scares me. He might be like, he's like the prince of the NFL. Fam, come out there with assless chaps. Let them cheeks clap. I don't give a fuck. He can play in heels. But again, I'm not a bigot though, so I don't care. But I do think there's a little bit of, I think there's a lot of bit of that with some of these fans, Chicago or not, that are trying to knock him for that. I don't care, dude. That's none of my business, the way he wants to present himself to the world, his sexuality, his gender identity. I don't give a fuck. Go out. Well, I do, because I'll support him if he's that, if he's any of those things. But I just mean in the ultimate, I just want him to win football games. I want him to be a good quarterback.
Right. And it's just so funny that the sexuality, like all that stuff, like, it's literally not anything more than he paints his nails and he, has an air about, like, there is nothing. People have just created this persona of him without knowing. Like, you saw what I felt were just like the raw emotions that when he was walking on that stage after being drafted, like, that was a dude who was excited to go to Chicago. Yep. And then to see him interacting with Rome after he got drafted.
I know, that was great.
Like, and that's so, that this is what I wanted. And I know that if Nas were here, I think this is kind of where he would jump in and talk about, this was his concern and I think you and I could, share this as well to an extent about why there was a concern about keeping keeping Eberflus, because of you want to build this continuity. You want to build this thing together. And if you have to switch head coaches, that creates a whole other thing. That being said, giving Caleb this talented of a wide receiver to build up with, to get to know, to become friends with, like we saw them interacting pre-draft, like they were on the same plane together. Like this all just felt like the stars were sort of just aligning for Rome to be a Bear. And now the trade for Keenan, if it didn't make sense to some Bears fans, he's 32, he's a 4th round pick. We already don't have that many picks. This was the plan.
Yep.
This to me was plan A, was to get Caleb and get Rome, right? And if something happened for some reason, Marv, obviously they would have. I'm not saying they would have passed up Rome passed up the other 2 for Rome. I'm just saying Ryan Poles was probably being realistic about what he could do at 9, given where the rest of their draft capital is. That being said, getting Keenan to be able to mentor the next wide receiver coming in, I think just makes, like, Rome is going to learn so. And fuck it, man, DJ might learn a thing or two from Keenan Allen.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, this is such a good offense, such a good room to learn from, just overall. And this entire offense has been rebuilt. This is a brand new Bears. And I know I have a lot of Bears fans. Well, it's the Bears, they're going to fuck it up. And like, I get it. But like, Ryan Poles said it best. The history is the history. I'm done talking about it. This is brand new. And like, I don't know how you look at this Bears team, this offseason they've had so far, and it's not even over because they still have 2 picks to get through. We can still get another defensive lineman. We can still get another safety. We can still get another offensive lineman, hopefully a center. There's still a ton left to do. But I don't know how you look at this offseason and just say, well, it's the same old Bears.
And no, you can't, because they're modernized, Jack. Again, we're not sitting here acting like they built a super team. This is just a modern team. We should have built this way 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like, we're finally here. We have a GM who gets it. And again, even if he winds up being bad, all this makes sense in the interim. All this makes sense for the right now. So, like, if it winds up not working, it is what it is. He took his shots, and the shots made sense. And that's really I said that was the other thing was the last thing. What you said reminded me, we have to fucking take our hats off to Poles, to Eberflus, to Kevin Warren, because they treated this situation that, make no mistake, I do think was very delicate. They love Justin Fields. We all did. But at the end of the day, you had to make a business decision. Not only that, so they get rid of him. I know the locker room didn't like that. We all know that, right? But the fact that they all go to dinner with Caleb Williams, DJ Moore says, we've been texting on a weekly basis. We talk about once, twice a week now. You're hearing these things come out, about Caleb, just like you said, the way he embraced Rome, the way he's embracing the city already. His first statement after he gets drafted, he says, I care about my teammates, I care about their families, I care about the city. I guarantee you, as soon as boots are on the ground in Chicago, he's going to have like a nonprofit wing and start, giving back to community. I guarantee that. Like, this kid seems very genuine when it comes to things like that. And I'm going to be honest, Jack. I think it's a big part of why Eberflus is still here from that locker room, that culture that he's built. Some locker rooms may not have been able to sustain this. And again, like, it sounds silly because Justin never had a great year or even like a good year on paper with the Bears, but he meant so much to the city and so much to his teammates in that locker room. The fact that this is just going in stride, you can't take that for granted, man. That takes real leadership from a coach, from a front office, from a president of football operations, and they fucking handled that phenomenally. Like, hats off to them.
Well, and even bringing it to the football side of things, hats off to Ryan. Like, I felt like the draft coverage did not do justice enough to what Ryan Poles ultimately was able to do. Like, it was not talked about last night enough about the fact that the Bears were even sitting at number 1. Like, the trade if Caleb Williams is able to bring a Super Bowl to Chicago, I mean, that's the greatest NFL trade of all time, in my opinion.
It might already be, Jack. Look at the
it's true. It's true. They got to win something, though. I'll give it that. You got to at least win a fucking playoff game. Before we get super far ahead of ourselves. But like, what Ryan Poles has been able to do with this roster, like, people were sharing it. What Justin started with, what Mitch started with what Jay had to work with when he first came to Chicago. versus like what Caleb is stepping into. Like you said, it may not work. They may not win more than one playoff game. They know things happen. Injuries happen. Who knows? But the process is what I like.
Yep.
The way they've gone about it makes sense. We're not sitting here after the first 2 draft picks being like, why the fuck are they taking safeties over wide receivers? Why the fuck are they why are they trading up one spot to get Mitch Trubisky? Like all of this stuff. And I do think that Ryan Poles just did not get enough credit last night from like overall NFL. And part of that is because it's been talked to death because apparently this was just the most predictable draft of all time in the top 10 and everybody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, man, like this is I can't remember the last time I felt like this after a draft. Maybe when Justin got drafted. I know we were obviously very excited,
I feel like even then we knew even then we knew he was a little bit of a work in progress. We just don't feel that way about Caleb. I truly, in my heart of hearts, especially with a supporting cast around him, think he's going to have a CJ Stroud-like season. Like he's just set up for it.
And it's different because everyone's heard of Caleb Williams. He's a Heisman winner.
Right.
He did things in college. He put production on tape. Like you know who he is. It's not, and he's the best quarterback available. It's not a question of who is, like, the amount of people I had texting me when Mitch got drafted. Who is that? I'm like, I don't blame you. I really don't, because nobody knew who he was.
Yeah.
And with Justin, it's like, okay, you and I thought he was probably our QB too. And like you could see him improving, but it wasn't, you're right. It was more like, okay, I could see this panning out someday. Like you see the skill set and you're just like, if he can put it all together. With Caleb, it's like, nah, like we just drafted the best quarterback in the draft. It's not even close. It's not like will we ever look back at this draft and say, oh, man, we really should have drafted Drake May #1. I don't think that'll ever be the case. No,
and that's what I keep telling. There's Packers fans, Viking fans that I know, and I don't know if how genuine they're being or they're trying to fuck with me. Like, you've ruined quarterbacks in the past. This is so different. It's not even funny. Like, we've never had the time we had our pick at the litter of the best guy, we picked the wrong one. There's no debate in this year's draft outside of a very fringe group of people who are trying to push Drake May or Jaden Daniels above Caleb Williams, which you're always going to have that. Everyone knows he's the #1 guy. He is the guy. Not only is he the guy in this year's draft, it wasn't like a Bryce Young thing. This is like you had people on national TV asking, well, if he was in the Peyton Manning draft, who would you take, him or Peyton? If he was in the Trevor Lawrence, like, you're talking about generational prospects that he's being compared to. No one else since Trevor Lawrence has been that way, and before him it was Andrew Luck, and like almost all of them said, like, I think the only guy I'd be taking over him is either Luck or Manning. Like, that's it. Of the last 30 years, there's not another quarterback prospect that we would take over him. So this is like beyond, and again, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But they're just like you said, that's what makes this all the greatest, is like, we don't have to sit back and like, fuck, did we really pass on Patrick Mahomes? Did we really pass? That's all going to be hindsight shit. We know in this moment, he is the best quarterback in this draft.
And again, I really don't think it's all that close. That being said, you brought up Peyton Manning. Caleb Williams going to be wearing number 18. I haven't seen, I don't know if maybe you saw it. I didn't see what number Rome will be wearing.
He's 15. 15. And Keenan is 13. Yep.
I like that. All right. I like it. 18. Come on, Peyton Manning. Let's fucking go. God damn, this is so exciting. Frank, you're right. Vikings fans, Packers fans saying you guys have ruined quarterbacks in the past. No, well, first of all, we didn't. We're just fans, right? We have no say. So settle down. Second of all, past is the past. History is history.
Yep.
It's all about the now. This is a new era of Bears football. Modern, exciting. This is gonna be so fun. It should just be fun. I just want to have some fun, Frankie.
Same. And it's here. The fun is here. It's going to be fun.
It's gonna be awesome. This has just been such a great start to the season. I think I cannot wait. I can't wait. I can't wait for fucking preseason, man. And we get the Hall of Fame game because Devin Hester going to the Super Bowl. Like, I know. It's going to be fucking awesome. It's going to be so great. And we're going to see Tyson, and all you Bajent fans can get your rocks off there. If he's still here. Who knows? This has been the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He's Frank. I know we want to get Naz's thoughts on the 2 draft picks, and maybe even the 4 draft picks by the time that Naz can do an episode. or 5, 6, whatever. If they decide to trade back, we'll see what happens. But for all of your Bears news, the Bears With Us podcast has got you guys covered. We appreciate you listening. Bear down, Frankie. Bear fucking
Bear the
down.
fuck down, man. Later, Jackie. Later, everybody.